All right, RezaieStrong follower, Salim Rezaie here, and I want to talk about a very nuanced topic, and that is that busyness does not equal productivity. And let me tell you what I'm talking about. I have two boxes here. In the red is characteristics of people who are busy. These are people who are generally hard workers. And in the blue box, I have characteristics of people who are productive. These are usually people who are efficient and always get results. So let's compare these two. So if you're busy, a hard worker, you prioritize shallow tasks. If you're productive, you prioritize important tasks. So what do I mean by that? So to me, a person who works hard looks at every task exactly the same. And so it's just a checkbox, right? You get an email, you got to answer it right then. Somebody texts you, you got to answer it right then. Whereas a person who's productive tends to know what are the priorities and what are the things that need to get done first, and then come back to the other stuff. So they're not just doing shallow work. People who are busy tend to multitask, whereas people who are productive tend to hyper focus on a single task. So what I find is that you're on your computer and you get email notifications, you get text messages, you get people calling you. You're basically working on 3, 4, 5 things. And the fact is that as much as we'd like to believe it, none of us can multitask. We can parallel task and we can rapid shift task, but we can't be doing multiple things at the same time. People who are getting results tend to focus on one thing. They block out all the noise so that they can focus on one task and get the signal that they're looking for. Busy people tend to spend time on things that don't matter. Productive people tend to be selective with the use of their time. Let's face it, time is one of the most finite things that we have. You lose it, you can't get it back. And people who are productive understand that. And so we don't just keep doing busy stuff because it gives us a sense of like we're getting things done, when in reality, we're just wasting time. You want to be selective about the things that you invest your time in. Busy people tend to say yes to a lot of things. Productive people tend to say no to a lot of things. And again, this comes back to priorities. People who say yes, and I think there is a place to say yes. Like, for example, early on in my career, when I was trying to get onto the speaking circuit of conferences, I said yes to all of them. But now I get so many invitations that I'm having to be selective about how I use my time. And so that's just an example. Early on, maybe you do say yes till you figure out what it is that you love doing, what you're passionate about. And then everything else, you kind of start saying no, because what you don't want is a plate that's so full that you're just doing shallow work, going through the motions and not really producing quality. Busy people immediately respond to tasks, whereas productive people schedule tasks. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that concept because this was a huge shift for me in my life in terms of not just doing busy work that was shallow work, but really trying to prioritize things that needed to get done right now and then work on other stuff later. And then busy people tend to value effort, right? These people are hard workers. I was one of them. You just work your butt off. But just because you're working your butt off doesn't mean that you're getting the results that you want, which is what productive people are looking for. So I hope this is a nice comparison of why busyness does not equal productivity. Now, for the scheduling of tasks, I told you I'd come back to that. And really, I like using this matrix to kind of help create a construct in my brain. So on the left-hand side, it's whatever that needs to get done is either not important or it's important. And then that has to do with priority. And then on the top, it's either urgent or it's not urgent. And so that's basically time sensitivity. Like, is there a deadline or is there not? And so we'll start in the top left. If it's something that's important, that's a priority, and there's a deadline, well, you got to do it now. So one example is I'm speaking at a conference and they need objectives and questions and my slides turned in. Well, it's important to me. I'm passionate about it. And there's a deadline on it. So everything else kind of has to wait till I can get that done. So you get the most important things that have deadlines done first. The next box on the top right is it's important, right? It's a priority, but there's no deadline. And so for these things, what I've started doing is I've started scheduling them into my calendar so that I don't forget. I'll come back to it and I'll get it done, but it's not as time sensitive as things that have deadlines. In the bottom left are things that are just not priorities, they're not important, and there's deadlines to them. And so this is kind of like busy work as far as I'm concerned. And I like to delegate that to other people that maybe have more interest in doing those things, or is more in line or has synchrony with what other people are focused on and isn't necessarily what I'm focused on. And then in the bottom right, it's not important, it's not a priority, and it's not urgent. And these are distractions, right? Oftentimes these are emails, this is social media, this is text messages, this is phone calls, this is just things that waste time. And I'm really trying to do better about limiting and deleting those. Or a better way to do this is setting blocks of time that you allow yourself to get whatever it is that you want. So I do blocks of time for my email. I try and do blocks of time for my social media. I'm not just sitting there thumbing through my phone. I've killed all push notifications on my phone. The only things that come through are text messages and phone calls from certain people that I've allowed to come through. Otherwise, everything else is silenced, and I get to it when I have the time that I've selected to get to it. So I hope this is a helpful construct. I hope you guys enjoy that. Just realize a lot of us are hard workers, but just because we're hard workers doesn't mean that we're productive. So busyness does not equal productivity. I hope that was helpful. Let me know your thoughts, comments, and questions. I appreciate everybody who's following and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed to RezaieStrong, just click the subscribe button on YouTube. And until next time.